Hello, my name is Julia, and this is my social determinants project. It's based in Bowden, which is also my hometown and where I've grown up and where I currently reside. So Bowden was founded January 1st, 1859. Um, some of the early settlers are the Allens, Barrs, Easons, Holloways, and many more. It's located in West Central Region in Carroll County. Bowden holds a small town charm and a sense of community since it is a small town. Everybody knows each other. The schools are small. It's just a nice, homey town to live in. I was born and raised here, and I still currently reside here, as I mentioned earlier. I know almost everybody in Bowden due to growing up here. My grandfather was one of the owners of a mobile home business in Bowden, and my father owned a cabinet business, which ultimately made me know a lot of folks. My mother's side of the family is also from Bowden. So I just know many people, along with the neighboring town, Carrollton. It's just small towns, and you just know everybody, and it's homey and a community that I like to be a part of. So with Bowden's demographics, the gender distribution is nearly equal, with 52.1% of the population being male and 47.9% being female. The racial slash ethnic makeup is predominantly white slash Caucasians, 84.4%, followed by black slash African Americans, then followed by Hispanic and Latinos. The median age of the population of Bowden is 39, and the average household size is 2 people. With the income of Bowden, the income levels indicate moderate earnings overall, with an average household income of $69,348 per year. Average individual income of $44,674 per year. And as of 2023, 27% of residents live below the poverty line, which is higher than the national average of 12.4%. The largest demographic living in poverty is females between the ages of 18 through 24, followed by males and females between the ages of 35 and 44. And out of the racial slash ethnic groups within Bowden, white residents are most commonly living under the poverty line, followed by the black African Americans, then Hispanic slash Latinos. When it comes to healthcare in Bowden, healthcare is pretty scarce. We lack actual medical centers and hospitals and urgent cares, but there are 2 medical clinics, Bowden Family Medicine and West Carroll Family Health Care. For hospital services, urgent care, and specialized care, residents have to go to the neighboring town, Carrollton. Carrollton has Tanner Hospital and many other medical slash urgent centers. Bowden has no health department, but the county does, the Carroll County Health Department. There aren't many resources for low-income residents unless it's online, such as Medicaid and others, and access may be limited due to transportation and accessibility to the internet. Okay, education. 57.3% of the population went to high school, while 14.4% later pursued college studies, 8.4% got an associate's, 8.9% got a bachelor's, and 6.5% went further to pursue a master's slash doctorate. Approximately 400 high school students with a 94% graduation rate. Racial slash ethnic makeup, with whites being 74.7%, black slash African Americans are 12.9%, biracial 7.3%, Hispanic slash Latinos is 6.8%, and Indian slash Alaska Native is 0.3%. The school system offers reduced and free lunches to those who are in low-income families, and people are encouraged to pursue a secondary education after high school. With that, there is the Technical College in Carrollton. There's also the University of West Georgia in the neighboring town, Carrollton, for those who do wish to attend college. Transportation and financial stability may be an issue for some who wish to attend. Transportation. Bowden's transportation is structured around roadways such as State Route 166 and State Route 100. And I-20 is also notable for interstate commerce, especially when traveling to Atlanta. Public transportation is limited due to the rural area. But there is the Carroll County Connection System, which is a shared ride service, but it requires a 24-hour advanced scheduling and only operates in the week and does not operate on holidays. So with that, there's also no train, there's no buses, there's no taxis really actually at all. It is very hard to get public transportation really anywhere since it's such a rural area. Even in Carrollton, it may be a little bit easier because of Uber and Lyft. But actually, speaking of Uber and Lyft are available, but they aren't as reliable and can be quite costly compared to urban areas in Bowden. So car ownership is essential for those who do not own a vehicle and are met with those who do not own a vehicle are met with significant barriers to essential services. The average commute time to these essentials is 26 minutes. 26 minutes. The transportation from Bowden to Carrollton is limited unless you own a vehicle, which can be a threat to one's health due to the long commute time to access a hospital or urgent care. But going back to like the Uber and Lyft, it is like extremely expensive to get an Uber or Lyft in Bowden because they're typically usually sitting around in Carrollton. So they have to travel 26 minutes to Bowden to get you and bring you to your area. So it's just expensive and very out of the way for most Uber drivers and Lyft drivers. So those are usually out of the question, especially if you're low income. With housing, 51.9% of homes are owned and 48.1% are renter owned. And as of early 2026, the average home value is approximately 251,000 and 350,000, with the median list prices varying around 281,000 to 349,800,000. Typical monthly rent is 1,050 to 1,250, sorry. Housing costs in Bowden are usually lower than the national average, which can be seen as affordable to most, but they are highly priced compared to the local median income. When a majority of a household income goes into house/rent, it makes it difficult to have access to healthcare, groceries, utilities, and transportation. With the increase of housing prices in 2026, housing instability is more prevalent, and the possibility of being evicted is more likely to be higher than ever due to median prices of home owning and renting together. Crime rate of 30.93 per 1,000 residents, and a crime grade of a C minus. Violent crime rated a D, and property crime rated a D plus. Bowden is considered safe compared to the national average, but it is less safe than the state average. The scores could definitely use some improvement. These scores can influence their residents' sense of security, which could potentially discourage them from going out into the community, or even like people who want to move into Bowden or are considering moving here may be discouraged because of the crime rate. Life expectancy is 75 years, and it is below the national average of 78 to 79 years, but matches the state average of 75 to 77 years. The gap between the national average and the average in Bowden could be a variety of factors, particularly the lack of access to health care due to far travel times, the reliance on commuting to Carrollton for healthcare services shows how transportation can delay treatment and urgent care for those who have emergencies. And low income levels and housing costs may limit access to healthy foods, medications, and overall wellness resources, which may lead to impacting an individual's long term health. Walkability. There are no sidewalks. Whenever I took this route, there were no sidewalks until I reached Bowden, which is unsafe because there are some blind spots on the way to Bowden, and these blind spots can be dangerous to people who are just walking in the road. There are so many potholes, which can be not helpful for those who limit mobility. And then there's also a lot of litter, overgrown greenery, cracks. Also, the walk score was a 24, which is very, very low. And there's only one grocery store along this walking path that I took. It is easier for me since I do live a little bit closer to downtown, but a lot of people do not. The prices aren't ideal at this grocery store. By the way, it's called the Piggly Wiggly. You have to go to Carrollton usually to get groceries. Walkability is an important characteristic for a town to have, especially for those who do not have a car. Walking is a good way to stay physically active and overall lower the risk of obesity. And having a walkable town can also encourage active transportation and even social interaction if the area is safe. It's beneficial to the mental health as well. However, having a town that lacks walkability isn't as inclusive to the residents who may not have a car or have limited mobility. And then all these pictures just display the cracks and potholes, the blind spots, and how there are no sidewalks and crosswalks really. My future career as a future registered dietitian, I think it's very important to consider the diversity, inclusivity, and empathy. I feel like those are some skills that I definitely have learned from this class for my future, to definitely take into account that everybody comes from a different place and that everybody deserves empathy and consideration when it comes to the healthcare field. Some come from low income, some come from high, some are this race, some are this race, some are older, some are younger. You just got to be very considerate of the person. And when approaching being a dietitian and approaching especially low income, you got to consider pricing and how they're going to afford it and other things like that. Okay, so my conclusion, what surprised me was how Bowden, I didn't realize how much Bowden lacked and how much improvement Bowden needed until I did this research, which definitely I hope in the near future that there will be some improvements in my town. Findings that had the greatest impact on my understanding of the community. Definitely the walkability, the neighborhood walkability. That whole project made me realize, because there are a lot of people who go by foot in Bowden or by bikes or even in wheelchairs traveling on the sidewalks. Bowden definitely needs to improve their sidewalks and potholes and just make it more accessible for those who have disabilities, because I've noticed there are a lot of people who have disabilities in Bowden. So it makes me more empathetic to those who have to do that and cannot get a car. How does the research relate to the social determinants of health? All of this relates to social determinants of health, and the health disparities are very prevalent in many different towns and just in America in general, and even the whole world in general. Health disparities are always going to be a thing, sadly enough. Like the crime rate, that's important for security of a person. Life expectancy is obviously can be influenced by people who can't afford rent, having to pay rent, having to get unhealthy groceries that are just calories that are not healthy for people. Sorry. Along with transportation, trying to get to healthcare, trying to reach healthcare that is in a neighboring town, since we do not have our own healthcare. Education is important, that these people go to school to get an education about this stuff, because some people can't even go to school. So, all of this just works together as one, as a social determinant of health. But that is my project. Thank you for listening.